Hello, Palladium fans. We've got a special behind-the-scene episode on the official history of Palladium games today. Today, we're going to talk about all of the... Consider this our what-if issue, our what-if episode, because over the years, there have been a lot of almosts and nearly happened games. And Kevin and I thought that would be a great time to just share these with you and let you know all of the things that in a parallel in the multiverse, there is a version of Palladium Books that may be publishing these other games. So, Kevin, the first one I want to talk about was King Features Library. And these have, the Phantom, Prince Valiant, Mandrake the Magician. How did that almost come about? And why did you like? I noticed a reoccurring theme on a lot of these, which was when you had to make the decision as a successful company. It was harder to make the decision what not to do as opposed to what opportunities to jump on. So let's start with this. And
yeah, so you're absolutely right, JM. When you're a successful company, opportunities just come to you. And I was a huge fan of King Features. So they're mostly newspaper characters and stories. Prince Valiant appeared in newspapers forever. The Phantom originated, Lee Falk was an amazing writer. I read some of his novels too. The guy is just astonishing. Lee Falk did The Phantom and Mandrake, and I think there's a couple others. And then, Hal Foster's Prince Valiant is like legendary and epic, especially among comic book artists, which, that's my origin story. And so, when you look at the pantheon of gods in comic books, I think Hal Foster is probably number one. And then there's like Alex Raymond as far as the early guys. And then you got guys like Jack Kirby and John Buscema, and there's even current guys like the main artist, or a couple of different artists doing the Titan Conan comic books. Mm-hmm. And John Buscema and Sal Buscema are all clearly influenced by Hal Foster. In fact, I don't think there was any artist coming out of the 1950s, 60s, 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s who weren't impacted by the art and storytelling of Hal Foster. So that alone, when King Features reached out to us out of the blue and said, "Hi, we heard about Palladium Books. We checked you out. We really like what you do. Would you like to license our properties? And by the way, you'll have access to our entire art library of photocopies of this magnificent art by all these amazing people." And I'm like, yes. And then when I really thought about it, I'm like, damn, no. And the reason was simple. There just wasn't enough wow factor to do these. When you had role-playing games like, and this is before Rifts, but, Heroes Unlimited and Palladium Fantasy and D&D and RuneQuest and Marvel Superheroes produced by TSR and a bunch of other games out there where you could do these amazing things. And you had magic like crazy all over the place, and superpowers. All these comic strip characters were just too mundane. Mm. They work great in novels. They would work good on TV. But and the other problem too is, and it's why games like Indiana Jones and Tarzan and even Conan is very difficult to do. And I think we talked about this a little bit before, is when you've got one central character who's the main guy, who are you going to play in a role-playing game? We all want to play Prince Valiant, right? At least with Prince Valiant, there's the Knights of the Round Table, so maybe you want to play Sir Gawain or, Lancelot or one of these other guys. But, Prince Valiant's the guy. Same thing with Mandrake, same thing especially with the Phantom.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Phantom. I love the
Ghost Who Walks, yeah.
And, the Ghost Who Walks, yeah. It's like, whew. But, so we turned it down. I turned it down, much to my chagrin.
All right, but then also in another galaxy far, far away, you guys were in the bidding for what became the D6 Star Wars game.
Yeah, we anyone who knows me, especially in the 80s, knows that I was a Star Wars fanatic. And we went after Star Wars hard. And we were the last company to drop out and let West End get it. They just outbid us by a considerable amount. And in some ways it's probably good, because I think we would have been very frustrated. I talked to a bunch of the West End guys after they got it, and they said, it's a great license. We're happy to do it. It's exciting, blah, blah, blah. But they wanted to do a lot more of the Clone Wars. And at that time, they're like, well, we don't know where we're going with that. So we want you to stay away from that. And we want you to stay away from this. And don't really go into that either. And it's like, so that's the thing with licenses is, a lot of times you're very restricted. That was one of the cool things with TMNT and with Eastman and Laird and Palladium being startup companies, is they gave us a lot of latitude. Like, I think today, if you went to someone and said, hey, I want to do other mutant animals, they'd be like, I don't think so. But, they let us create new characters and mutant animals, and which ultimately kind of impacted where they went with their characters and storylines and adversaries. So it was fun that we were kind of, it's very much a symbiotic, cooperative relationship that worked for us, worked for them. They went on to make history with it. So, but yeah, so we had to let Star Wars go too. But
all right, so then I know we're blitzing through these, but I mean, these are games that almost happen. There's small little snippets. There's not a whole lot to tell after this.
No,
but
and there's a lot of them.
You were approached by Mark Reinhagen.
Yes.
Who went on to found, White Wolf, Vampire, Ars Magica, which just had a massive anniversary edition or, ultimate release just recently and did fairly well on Kickstarter. How did Palladium, how did Mark connect with you? What was you guys could have been publishing Vampire and
yeah, it's crazy to think some of this stuff, just like, with Wizard of the Coast, Garfield, who created, Magic the Gathering, but his original game was some kind of race car game, I think. And, but he came to us. He went to everybody in the industry. That's where I give Peter Atkinson credit, that he saw the way to not only that Magic the Gathering had that fabulous potential, but the exact proper way to market it, which was collectible cards, which didn't even exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, we turned down that. We didn't even talk to the guy. It was just like, thanks, no thanks. We don't do card games. End of story. It was like nothing personal. We're a role-playing game company. We don't do card games. So thanks for considering us, but see ya. So in the case of Mark Reinhagen, we had met at Gen Con and other conventions and hit it off and liked each other. And he calls me up and makes a real, strong pitch for us to do Ars Magica. This is like 1989, I want to say. And I'm like, Mark, it sounds really cool, but I already have a fantasy world.
Yeah.
And you want to introduce a whole new game system. And, our whole thing is we're one game system. Yeah. So thanks, buddy, but we're going to pass. It was just, and again, it was probably a good thing because he hooked up with the Wicks, who are good guys, and they went on to do great stuff. I don't know if we would have ever done Vampire Masquerade in the same vein that they, no pun intended, that they went with and was classic and went on to be, huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I don't hear regret in any of your voice on these. It's not like, oh, if only. It's just, well, hey, that was at the time we made the best decision that we did, and it worked out well for everyone else involved. So like, well wishes and continue on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
That's
so
exactly right.
I love for a variety of reasons, the Knights of the Dinner Table.
Who doesn't?
Right. You said you wouldn't hold it against me growing up in Waukegan. Kenzerco, originally from Waukegan. Like there's a lot of love there. Them getting the rights to do their version of AD&D as Hackmaster is one of the fascinating stories that we're not covering on the history of this channel. But you had the opportunity to be the publisher of Hackmaster.
Yeah, we not just publisher. I was going to co-write and design with Jolly Blackburn Hackmaster, and because Jolly and I are dear friends. I love that guy like crazy, and we thought it'd be a blast. It'd be a lot of fun, and we started spitballing ideas. And part of it was just a matter of creative differences, not with Jolly, but with his partner, Dave Kenzer. And Dave is a really great guy. Don't get me wrong. I think the world of Dave, and he's done right by Jolly and has done great things with the whole Hackmaster game and Aces and Eights and obviously Knights at a Dinner Table, the comic and graphic novels. So again, no regrets, no animosity whatsoever. But as we were pitching our ideas on what we wanted to do, Dave clearly had very, very strong ideas on where the game should go and how it should be presented, to the point where it was actually me who went, Dave, why are we even talking about Palladium doing this? You clearly know what you want to do, or you and Jolly want to take this. You should just do this yourself. And he did.
Yeah.
So, and it was great.
They're always at Gen Con, not too far away from your booth.
Yeah.
All right. So put a little context around this for Palladium fans who may not also be comic book fans. Michael T. Gilbert's Mr. Monster, Dark Horse comic. Again,
this is a late 1980s, early 1990s. Again, my comic book background, I read all kinds of stuff, too much stuff. I spend way too much money on comics. It's like a drug addiction. And I just, I went to this one comic book store just yesterday, and I thought, I'm doing great. I only spent $20. And then I went to my favorite comic book store. And the guy who works there, knows I'm a sucker for certain things, and we have very similar taste. And I've learned to trust him. So when he says, "Oh, Kev, you need to try reading this," I buy it. Especially, and a lot of them are graphic novels. So I was so happy. I only spent $20, and I walk out of that place afterwards, having spent $79 additional dollars. I bought like 3 or 4 graphic novels and a bunch of other comic books, and it's like, what's wrong with you, Kevin? Control yourself. So Michael T. Gilbert was an artist writer who did a really cool, fun character that was around for, I want to say, 6-8 years with Dark Horse. I was a big monster fighter guy. He had red goggles, and it was cool. It had a similar, but not quite as serious feel as oh my gosh, I'm blanking. And
Hellboy?
Thank you, Hellboy.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Michael again just saw what we were doing, and we had done Turtles, and we had done Heroes Unlimited, and Ninjas and Super Spies, and I was using tons of different comic book artists, Jim Steranko and others. And so he really, really, really wanted us to do an adaptation. He was willing to really work with us and give us a sweet deal and a license. And again, much like King Features is one of those things I really thought about doing, and then went, I just got too much other stuff going on. One of which was Rifts was in development already and nearing completion. And I'm like, I just can't, if I'm going to devote my time to Rifts and Palladium Fantasy, Robotech, we still had Robotech at the time, and Turtles. We had, that was the big three, TMNT, Robotech, Rifts. And then, it's hard, it seems crazy to call them second string because they were all big sellers, but I mean, Palladium Fantasy, Heroes Unlimited, Ninjas and Super Spies, Beyond the Supernatural. I had my hands full.
You did, yeah.
And I didn't want to become just a company that licensed characters and did adaptations through licensing, because it's always more fun to do your own stuff. So I said, I'm sorry, Michael, I gotta go.
It is, and there's also some inherent risks and challenges on having a license, because you're not beholden to yourself, you're beholden to the license holder. And
absolutely. Yeah. And in the end, whatever you create belongs to the licensor.
Yeah.
So, they're not your characters. You create some awesome characters. Terror Bears and Doc Farrell.
Yeah.
And the Rat Pack and Turtle Go Hollywood. Those are all, same thing with Robotech. When we created new characters, new mecha, they're not ours. They can appear as toys,
or licensor,
and we don't get a cut. They can do whatever they want with these things. We're not even likely to ever get a thank you or a created by, Eric Woodjick or Kevin Siembieda. It's like, no, it's part of the canon under license, and it's theirs now. And it's okay. That's how licensing works, and that going in. And likewise, we kind of touched upon it with Star Wars. You don't have that absolute freedom. Mm-hmm. It's not your property.
Yeah.
That's the thing you have to keep reminding yourself. I've had people like, this damn licensor won't let us do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, it's not your characters.
Yeah, you've got to do what they tell you because it's their property.
And when you're dealing with something like Star Wars and Marvel superheroes and Ninja Turtles, you're talking about characters and stories and IP, intellectual property, that's worth hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. Of course they're going to, watch how you dot every I and cross every T. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of it, in 94, you guys were in the running for Marvel Superheroes?
Yeah.
That seems like one that is weird to me that one didn't land up at some point in Palladium's lap, I'll be honest. Knowing what I know about you and how big of a Marvel Comics fan you are.
Well, that was one where fanboy Kevin shed a tear when we didn't get that license.
Yeah.
Businessman Kevin said, whew. Because and I'm sure NDAs and stuff wouldn't apply any longer, but I don't want to get into it. It would have been the most we ever paid out for any license ever. And we had gotten so far in the negotiations for the Marvel superhero license that when I told my attorney, I think we need to back out of this, he said, I don't see how you can. You basically have a verbal agreement. That's how far we had gone with it. And why I wanted to back out is that we talked more and more about the process of getting approvals and that kind of thing. It just sounded like a nightmare. And for example, and I don't know if this ever came to pass, but whoever was running the department at the time, we're talking to them and they said, well, like one of the things we wanted to do, come on, Palladium Books, we wanted to have an Iron Man book with every suit that had ever been made, completely statted out. And they said no. Because, and this is at the time, the people at the time, because they wanted everything to be focused on what the current comic books were doing.
Yeah.
Worse than that, they said, so like if Iron Man changes his suit, or Spider-Man changes his suit, and these guys changed their costumes like, I don't know, runway models. I mean, all the time. They wanted us to make those changes in the subsequent printing of a book that had been released. And I'm like, I don't know. Plus their approval process, and I get it, this is common for a lot of things. You have to get the pencils approved, and then you had to get the final pencils approved, and then you had to get the inks approved and the colors approved, because that was going to be one of our first color books. And Kevin Long was going crazy because he's also a huge Marvel fan. He's like, I always wanted to draw these characters. And they're like, we don't know if he can. We're like, what? They're like, no, you got to use our stable of artists. And of course, you have all of our great classic art, which was exciting.
Yeah.
Much like with King Features, it's like, what? I have access to whatever photocopies of pages you have of, John Buscema and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and yes. But it seemed like licensing was going to be a nightmare. And then so they would approve all that. And then apparently if some executive looked at it, the final layout, everything has been approved from A to Z, every step of the way. And some exec came in and said, I don't like this, change it. We would have to have changed it. And they wanted us to use their bullpen of licensing artists, which aren't as good as, most of these guys are really excellent, but they're not, a lot of them aren't as good as, the main artists. And, that was a problem. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? This is going to be a nightmare. How do we get out of this? And my attorney is telling me, you can't, Kev. You have a verbal agreement. And then the hand of fate came down, and it's very interesting because our salvation was Wizards of the Coast. So Wizards apparently jumped in. I don't know if they heard we were going after it and they wanted it, or it was just parallel development and they wanted it the same time we did. But they went to Marvel and said, we'll pay you like 50% more than what Palladium's paying you. And so Marvel called up and said, hey, we got this better offer, but we've been working with you and we really like you guys. And if you can match it, it's yours. And we probably could have matched it at the time.
Yeah, but this was the out you were looking for.
Yeah, and so I went, oh, gosh, that's just a little too rich for our blood. So I guess we'll just step away, and thanks for the opportunity, and hung up the phone and went, oh, thank you, God.
Well, we've got some more games that almost happened and almost could have happened, but I think we should save that for a second part of this.
Yeah, and we can talk about video games too.
Yeah, I was going to say we could talk about the Rifts MMO
and Hollywood even, because we've had Hollywood flirt with us, and I feel like the pretty girl at the dance that everyone wants to dance with but doesn't want to go home with.
Nobody takes them home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks with more of the official history of Palladium Books. Again, thank you to everybody leaving comments. Leave comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you would like to see us talk about.